We're at the 16th annual National SARIPA Conference in Natal, where all the different heads of auction businesses, business rescue practitioners, and solvency attorneys are all getting together to discuss how better to help their clients in business rescue. It's a learning conference where people come together to share stories, understand how exactly is business rescue unfolding in South Africa, and is it still relevant?
Welcome to the Corner Office, where we bring you the latest news from the world of commercial real estate, the greatest voices in the industry, and the corporate chats you've been missing. Let's get to it.
Talking to Gideon Bochedi, who's the COO of CGIC, which is Credit Guarantee Insurance Corporation of Southern Africa. We were talking now, it was actually founded in 1956, and the shareholders register read sort of 10, 20 different shareholders. Some corporations don't even exist anymore, but now has been consolidated down into two major shareholders, Old Mutual being one, and just a fascinating company and very, very involved in the business rescue and liquidation space because they guarantee hook credit, which is quite a thing. So Gideon, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me, John.
Yeah. So I thought maybe we'd start with, tell us a little bit about Credit Guarantee Insurance, the type of clients that you're working with. And I know maybe you don't want to mention names, but the type of clients you're working with. And then also a little bit of how Credit Guarantee Insurance works. Because we spoke about it just now, and it was quite sort of sweeping. Basically, if you don't get paid, you step in.
Yes.
Or if the client doesn't get paid.
Yes. So, thanks, John. I think Credit Guarantee, we sell credit insurance. And credit insurance is where we protect our clients for non-payments by its customers or by their customers. So a company may be selling widgets and they would have 500 customers. They will come to us and say, can you insure any one of those customers for non-payment? And then we would create a policy, and then they administer the policy. So then the way we would work then is every single time you need to trade with those customers, you would come to us and we would give you what we call a credit limit. And the credit limit is actually your proof of insurance. And then you start trading.
Yeah.
And then you can sleep easy at night,
yeah.
knowing that any one of those, if they don't pay you, then you've got your money guaranteed by Credit Guarantee. And in essence, that's what we do. We operate in most of the sectors in the economy. We are quite heavily indexed in steel, from the big manufacturers and steel makers down to middle guys. We've got in our books all the major steel manufacturers and steel mills in the country, and some of them outside of the country, steel traders that are outside of the country. We cover domestic economy and our export customers that export all over the world. We have exposures in Africa, every major, in the East Bloc, in the West Bloc in Africa. We've got everywhere in Africa, we've got exposures where we cover our export customers. And also we've got customers that trade we've got exposure in South America, North America, in the East, in Europe. South Africa export quite a lot of fruits. And so we have quite a lot of clients in the Western Cape that exports to Middle East, to Europe, our fruits. So those are covered.
And are these credit periods defined? So if you're executing a trade where you're exporting to Egypt, for example, and it's a sort of commodity export, or it's a fruit export for that matter, is it just for the period of that trade? So until they are supposed to pay you, you get paid, then that's done. Then you must have a new contract, or is it an overarching trade contract because you're trading with a single customer over time? And
it's you have a policy that's overarching, and then every single trade underneath it's insured to the value of the credit limit. But it's continuous, it's rolling over. As you get paid, you keep rolling.
And do they have to keep you updated? Is it like an open book policy?
We talk to our clients virtually every day, because business happens every day and changes happen every day. But if there's nothing to talk about, they keep on trading. So we don't stop trade. Our insurance is really underlying based on our customers' trade. If you trade, the only limitation is we can't insure anything within its terms that you trade with that are longer than 6 months. So any 30, 60, 90, 180 days, that's our maximum.
Okay, so quite sort of tradable commodities. Let's talk about property, for example, which is a much longer dated commodity. Do you underwrite that type of policy? Let's say a development risk, or perhaps a client who signed a lease for 5 years and you're underwriting the bank who holds the mortgage guarantee, or alternatively the developer who's waiting to get paid. Is that a space that you operate in, or no?
No, we don't operate in the space. The space that we operate in construction, we have a product that we also sell, which is called performance guarantees.
Yes.
So what then would happen is a property developer would want a construction house, whoever, to provide them with a guarantee, which we issue them. And so that's how we stay in that space. So we would issue performance guarantees to the major development houses, property developers, for most of the development.
Okay, and that's a sort of longer dated one, which has a set of drawdowns.
It's a longer dated one. It's a coverage that they need. Sometimes it runs for a period of the execution of the construction. For example, Eskom would come to us for the Medupi construction house. We would issue guarantees to Eskom for all the construction companies that our clients that would be partaking in that construction. And so in the economic system, we have that's our participation from a construction basis. From a rental space, we don't play in that. We don't provide rental guarantees or any of that.
I mean, you look at what happened with Fourways Mall during COVID-20 and the non-payment of tenants, and I think it was Aon who was actually the underwriter. I mean, there was quite an interesting case study there where there was an underwriting. You had subsequent underwriting, and no one had seen the change in contract.
Yeah.
But what happens in the space is that ultimately the term sheet that's put out, that's what you quote on, and if you don't specifically note that you have amended your quote based on a change that isn't recognized here, then it's taken that you quoted on this. And that was the case law that ultimately led to Aon having to pay out. And it was quite significant, I think.
It's quite significant. I followed that case. It's quite significant in that space. Well, fortunately, we don't play in that space.
Yeah.
But it is quite significant. It's changing because, I mean, we in CGIC had embarked since 2020, you asked me earlier. We had embarked on refining our policy documents and making sure they are clear precisely for those reasons.
Yes.
Making sure that when the client reads our documents, it's clear, you can understand clearly what you're covered for, you can understand how to execute the cover and how you get paid and what are the breaches into the policy, so that you don't wake up one day and you submit a claim and he says, I'm not getting paid. Why am I not? Yeah.
Because, I mean, that must have been, a scary moment for the property owner.
Yeah.
And I think also quite a scary moment for the insurers and then the subsequent underwriters.
Yes.
Because the numbers were significant there, I think.
Yeah, very, very significant.
I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was big.
Very significant.
So do you deal with intermediaries or brokers who actually bring these policies to you and say, I have a client, I'm bringing them, and our book is brokered at around 75%. That's quite a high. So we've got big brokers on our books, the Marsh brokers, Aon, they are also our brokers, and every other brokers. It is a specialist line though, because it's not, you don't find it everywhere. So we call them specialized brokers. So we've got quite a size of brokers. We deal mainly with brokers through our distribution channels. Got you.
That sells our product.
Got you. How long have you been in the industry?
Sure. Without revealing my age, I've been in this industry for over 30 years. Yeah. I've been 29 years in CGIC. Yeah, it's been quite a journey.
I can imagine. You must have seen everything. Run us through a life cycle. I mean, more recently, one of the big events was COVID.
Yes.
What are some of the other big events where suddenly the CGIC has had to fire up the payment machine?
Look, that's quite a history. So if I take you back to 1995, in that crash, so that's, and I remember driving through, major in Joburg towns, and you would see all the there was a garage that used to be here. It's closed down. There was, in 95, Joburg, like there used to be garages selling cars every corner back then in 95, and when that economy crashed, everyone closed, and that's when we came to the party. And you see it when you see a car dealership closing down, and many of them closing down. You play that backwards into the economic system. You can see the OEMs are suffering. You can see the parts dealers are suffering. And that's when I started learning that the dashboard, how it's get made.
Everything's connected. Yeah,
everything's connected.
Business is connected.
Yeah, I had to go try to save some businesses in Pretoria that were producing dashboards and submitting those to Ford. And Ford was saying, listen, demand is dropped, we're cutting that, and brutal. And all of those guys were, closing down, and it was difficult then. So I was, my sort of baptism of fire into the game, so to speak. And then, of course, 2008, 2009, that was another
significant
financial crisis in the thing. And that lived with us, sort of, if you look back and you see what the economy did, we crashed, we came up. And then since 2010, it's been like, okay, up there, and then started falling down. And we only really, in 2016, it was still bad.
Well, if you look at the real estate counters, all the REITs, you look at the overall South African index, we're only just getting back to 2012.
Exactly.
Which, I mean, that's 12 years now.
That's 12 years.
Which is significant. In the last year, they're 50% growth. Which is amazing. So lived through those events and seen big companies close down and changes, and others coming to the top. I've lived through Adcon. We had to do that, Adgas and Adcon. But how do they come to you now? I mean, what are they guaranteed? I mean, these are the customers. They can't say no one's spending. No one's buying new jeans.
Yeah, look, so
who's not paying them?
So most of the suppliers into the then Adcon were our clients, and we carried quite a big I remember at one point in Adgas, we used to be into Adgas for about 1.5 billion. Before 2020, this was a long turnaround, about 6-7 years before then. Been working with them, visiting them regularly, and trying to find a way. And Bain, as a shareholder, and had many conversations with them. But it was quite tricky, because if you start reducing and cutting the cover, you don't get...
It takes liquidity,
Yeah, it takes liquidity out, and you don't get the stuff on the floor. And then we had even lots of customers that do cosmetics into
the same game the banks play.
Same game
the banks play. Start reducing their credit exposure.
Yeah. You see it there.
Yeah.
So I mean, most of those guys that supply to Adcon were our clients, and we had to get engaged with Adcon over many years to try and assist in turnaround.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it was getting right, and then 2020 hit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember getting that dreaded call. Listen, we're not going to make it. We're gonna file for business rescue.
I remember, didn't he phone? He was on the phone to everyone. He was crying. I remember that. Yeah, it was bad.
It was bad.
Yeah.
It was bad.
I have two more questions for you before we close off. I see we have 5 minutes left, but my two questions for you are this. First of all, what do you think of the overall business sentiment in the economy? And, post this coalition government, or GNU, or whatever we're calling it, what do you think of the overall sentiment, and what do you think in terms of our GDP growth? Yesterday they come out, midterm budget policy speech, and they say 1.1%. Adrian Gore, 3%.
Yeah.
Gideon Bochedi?
Gideon Bochedi is somewhere around 2.5%.
Nice, Investec.
Yeah, there was quite a lull before the GNU, before the elections, and everything was halting. We started seeing the pickup in our claims when that started coming through. But since then, since things have sort of turned the corner and people have got the GNU stabilized, the confidence is back, and we can see trade is starting to move. 2.5, I would comfortably say. I mean, all the right things are happening right now. Stable GNU, the interest rates are settling down, and they're starting downwards trends. And so, I mean, two-pot system is coming in. There's a couple of billions that is released.
Say 21 billion rand's already been removed.
So it's starting to get into the system.
Yeah.
We've been cautious though in not being bullish that high, because all of this stuff still needs to fed into the
we've seen a couple of failures and business rescues recently. I mean, we had Ellie's.
There
was AutoZone, Westpac, also the sports
Cross Trainer.
I mean, there've been so many.
There's been so many, So we think this, all of those you mentioned, actually we are involved in them, except for Cross Trainer, because Cross Trainer we have been in.
So how's the bank account feeling at CGIC?
Look, the bank account is starting to recover, so it's feeling a little bit optimistic.
Nice.
We think there would be nice trading into 2025. We see it with our customers that we talk to regularly. They also are giving us feedback that things are looking up, but they're optimistic of a better 25, and hence our 2.5 growth, GDP growth estimates.
Well, hopefully nothing goes wrong, and hopefully we see it. But it's been lovely talking to you and finding out about CGIC and really unpacking it a little bit. Thank you for coming to join us.
Thank you for inviting me, John.